following video deals with mature subject matter which may not be suitable for younger children. Viewer discretion is advised.
Before we get into the video, take a look at these t-shirts. For the gentlemen, there's Papa Squatch. For the ladies, there's Mama Squatch. And for the kids, there's Sasquatch in training. For a limited time, these shirts will be available only on mysteriesofcanada.com for $29 Canadian, or about $21 US. To get a closer look at this rare and elusive apparel, and support this channel in the process, please check out the link in the description. Our next Chinese-Canadian mystery brings us back to Vancouver Island, to the aftermath of the Leechtown gold rush. While prospectors were flocking to the new diggings on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, the Vancouver Island Exploring Expedition, whose members had discovered the gold on Leech River, prepared for another season of exploration on the island. According to historian Lindsay Elms in his 1996 book, Beyond Nootka, Dr. Robert Brown was forced to relinquish his position as leader of the operation in 1865 on account of a contract he had made back in 1863 with the British Columbia Botanical Association of Edinburgh, for which he ostensibly still worked as a seed collector. Brown recommended that an educated member of his party, a former royal engineer named John Buddle, lead the 1865 expedition, and his proposal was adopted. That summer, Buddle and company made a thorough exploration of the various arms of Clayoquot Sound on the west coast of Vancouver Island, with the goal of eventually making an overland journey to Nimkish Lake on the island's northern tip. One of the western waterways they investigated was the Bedwell River, known at the time as the Bear River, which empties into Bedwell Sound. Upon reaching a fork in the river, Buddle divided his company in two, personally leading one party up a tributary known today as the Ursus River, and delegating his subordinate, a seasoned prospector named Magan Hancock, with taking the other party up the Bear River proper. Buddle ended up climbing a mountain, from which he sighted a large secluded lake that would eventually be named in his honor. Hancock and his party, on the other hand, discovered what they claimed to be paying quantities of alluvial gold in the Bear River. Buddle included this provocative information in a letter to Sir William Young, the Colonial Secretary of British Columbia, which was published in the August 11, 1865 issue of the Victoria British Colonist. "It is Mr. Hancock and Forgey's opinion," he wrote, Thomas Forgey being another veteran of the Royal Engineers who served in the expedition, "that there are profitable and payable diggings on the river and its vicinity to employ several hundred miners. There are a number of dry gulches and creeks coming into the river, which, if prospected, would pay. I should wish to be understood by the public that if they intend to come here to mine, to come prepared, at least with more than a pick, pan, and shovel, for I think, by the men's report, there is likely to be extensive diggings to be met with." Spurred by news of this new strike, Leechtown veterans who had returned to Victoria purchased fresh outfits and headed up the island's western coast by steamer and canoe to the Bear River. To their dismay, they discovered that the rich diggings promised by the press were far less lucrative than Buddle had advertised. Dismissing the explorer's report as a pack of lies, most of the prospectors returned to Victoria after about a week of fruitless panning. As an article in the August 23, 1865 issue of the Victoria Daily Chronicle put it, "Some 200 men have rushed to the Bear River, or more properly, the Bear River, spelt B-A-R-E, diggings, with tools and provisions, only to find themselves duped. They have returned, after spending their time and money to the extent, in the aggregate, of about $5,000, having undergone hardships and privations in reaching a most difficult and inhospitable part of the island. They were poor when they started, and are much poorer now, for on reaching the place indicated as a goldfield, they found that the report of the place was quite untrue, and were compelled to abandon their stores and tools and return to the city." For 22 years, the valley of the Bear River, later renamed the Bedwell River, lay wild and desolate, the nearest human settlement being a Clayoquot Nootka village that stood at its mouth. In the summer of 1887, however, rumor reached Victoria that a band of Chinese prospectors were operating placer mines on the river. According to historian Walter Guppy, in an article for Victoria's Times Colonist, one Mr. Cameron, perhaps Vancouver Island's former Chief Justice David Cameron, was sent to investigate this report. He discovered about 50 Chinese miners erecting dams, sluice boxes, and water wheels on a boulder-strewn section of riverbank, about 12 miles from the Bedwell's mouth. They gave Cameron the impression that they were trying to keep a good thing to themselves. A brief reference to the secretive operation was made in the 1899 annual report of the Minister of Mines for British Columbia, in a section on Vancouver Island developments written by provincial assayer Herbert Carmichael. This passage contains a cryptic sentence alluding to a terrible fate that befell one of the Celestials, as Chinese immigrants were sometimes called, which prompted his fellow countrymen to abandon their enterprise. In the early 60s, Carmichael wrote, Bear River had a placer gold excitement, and about 12 years ago, some 15 Chinamen were at work on the upper reaches of the river, washing for gold. These, however, suddenly left in a body, having been driven away, it is said, by superstitious fears engendered by the sudden death of one of their number. The workings of these earlier miners are still visible, and it is reported that they found considerable gold, but that the numerous large boulders prevented the work being profitable. No mention is made of the manner of the prospector's death, nor of his companion's notions as to the nature of the evil force that caused it. A possible clue to the miner's fate appears in the writings of N.L. Bill Barley, a historian, high school teacher, and politician who searched for a certain lost gold mine in southern British Columbia in the mid-20th century. In an article for the 1974 issue of Canada West, segments of which were republished in Garnet Basque's 1988 book, Lost Bonanzas of Western Canada, Barley described coming across the remains of an abandoned placer mine on Skeff Creek, BC, in the Kootenay Boundary Country just north of the US border. He identified the workings as Chinese on account of the careful precision with which nearby tailing rocks had been stacked, and was puzzled when he found more evidence indicating that the prospectors had abruptly deserted the site before they had finished working it, knowing that Sinitic miners were famous for flogging their claims until the last fleck of gold dust had been extracted from the soil. Barley knew that the Chinese traditionally abandoned any creek where one of their countrymen had been killed, usually within hours, Basque wrote, paraphrasing Barley. Eyeing a series of massive boulders which lined the creek bank, Barley theorized that one of the Chinese had perished while looking for gold beneath one of these rocks. Undercutting and propping boulders to get at the gold underneath them is one of the most dangerous jobs in mining, he wrote, and although the Chinese were experts at it, they too occasionally made mistakes. Perhaps one of the Chinese on the Bedwell River had perished while performing a similarly hazardous operation, prompting his fellows to leave the area to escape the bad luck which they suspected had caused the accident. Or perhaps there was a more sinister reason for the Chinese departure from the upper Bedwell, a mountainous region long shunned by the island's natives for fear of the Masachi Ikta, or bad thing, which was said to haunt the forest there. It might not be out of place here to insert another historical anecdote brought to my attention by a viewer named Carl Schmid. In their 2003 book, Full Moon Flood Tide, woodsman Bill Proctor and artist Yvonne Maximchuk included a story set in the Queen Charlotte Archipelago, a desolate cluster of wooded islands situated between the northern shores of Vancouver Island and the British Columbian mainland. More specifically, the story takes place in the remote ghost town of Greenway Sound, on the northern shores of Broughton Island. In the 1930s, Greenway Sound was home to a Chinese logging camp, the last remnant of a quartet of similar operations that had been active in the area since about 1918, 3 of which had since shut down. Here, a crew of between 30 to 50 Chinese-Canadian lumberjacks felled and sawed red cedar trees into shingle bolts, 1-foot cubes of cedar wood, which would be transported to a shingle mill for conversion into roof shingles. One night, the authors wrote, the men and their families packed up their belongings, shot the horses, got in their boats, and took off. No one ever knew why they left. It is a mystery to this day. But over the years, there have been many reports of a very odd event. If you are in the sound just above Carter Pass on a bright moonlit night, you might see the huge creature that is reported to have come to the surface of the sea and roared like a lion. Perhaps the creature was the cause of their departure, or it may have simply been the tedium and harsh conditions of their existence in this lonely place. In 1867, 2 years after the Bedwell River gold rush, British colonies in the eastern half of the continent united into a single federation called the Dominion of Canada, which was divided at that time into the provinces of Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. 4 years later, the colony of British Columbia, hitherto a domain of the British Crown, agreed to join Canadian Confederation, on the condition that a transcontinental railroad be constructed through the vast territory that lay between it and the eastern provinces. From 1880 to 1885, thousands of laborers from the Chinese province of Guangdong were shipped to British Columbia to labor on the westernmost stretch of the promised thoroughfare, the Canadian Pacific Railway, laying ties and blasting tunnels through the treacherous Fraser Canyon for $1 a day. Although they earned only 2/3 of what their white counterparts made, their meager salaries were a significant improvement upon the paltry wages that could be got in Canton. These coolies, as they were called at the time, performed some of the most dangerous work on the railroad, and were frequently killed by blast debris, rock slides, boating accidents, and long plunges over the steep cliffs that line the Fraser Canyon. Illness, malnutrition, and frigid temperatures also took their tolls. By the time the railway was completed in 1885, Onderdonk estimated that at least 600 of his Chinese laborers had perished during its construction, amounting to 4 deaths per every mile of track laid by the western section gangs. Many of Onderdonk's navvies had left their homes in China with dreams of securing financial freedom in Canada. Few achieved their goals. The costs of their initial journeys from Hong Kong to Victoria, the fish and rice on which they subsisted, the clothes they were obliged to purchase, and the accommodation fees they were required to pay were all deducted from their wages. By the time they were discharged by the CPR, many did not have enough money to buy a steamboat ticket back home. Left with no alternative, they resigned themselves to a life in Canada. Some of them settled in the coastal towns of Port Moody and New Westminster, many of them finding employment in salmon canneries. Others congregated in Victoria, joining the old gold rush veterans who had founded Canada's first Chinatown on the northeastern side of the provincial capital. By 1885, Victoria's Chinatown already had a sordid reputation, being a haven for brothels, opium dens, and gambling houses. In the summer of 1889, Victoria's Chinatown became the scene of what a contemporary newspaper described as one of the most deliberate, atrocious, and diabolical murders ever recorded in the annals of British Columbia. On the evening of Sunday, May 12th, at about 11 o'clock, Officer Lindsay of the Victoria Police Department was on the Chinatown beat when the urban silence was rent by the panicked screams of a woman. The officer followed the wails to a brothel owned by a Chinaman named Pei Zahong, where he found a prostitute named Ah Sam in a state of terror. The woman gestured to the floor of a first-story room, where Lindsay discovered the bloody corpse of a beautiful 15-year-old girl named Yao Kum, whose neck had been nearly severed. The body of the deceased rested directly beneath an open window, on the other side of which lay a pool of blood. Officer Lindsay was familiar with the victim, whom he had caught many a night with her head out the window, advertising her illicit services to white passers-by. Like other residents of that house of ill repute, Yao Kum had been sold by her parents as a young girl in China and shipped to the New World, where she was forced, as one newspaper article put it, to be the slave of the vilest of human passions. Ah Sam, the woman who had alerted the policeman to the scene of the crime, apparently served as a sort of madam in conjunction with brothel keeper Pei Zahong. She claimed that Yao Kum had been a romantic interest of a young man named Chow Ah Young, called in other accounts Chan Ah Hong, Ah Herm, Ah Hyung, and Ah Chung, who lived on the 3rd floor of the house next door, and who worked as a bedmaker in the nearby American Hotel for a wage of $15 a month. On the evening of the murder, Chow had asked Ah Sam's permission to marry Yao, but the older lady of the night declined his proposal on account of the young man's poor financial prospects. Yao apparently approved of her madam's decision and told Chow Ah Young to be on his way. Chow took this rejection as proof of a rumor circulating around Chinatown, which held that another suitor, named Ma Kei, had won the fair heart of the object of his affection. Local gossip had it that Yao had asked Ma to procure some poison for her so that she might kill Ah Sam, who had declined his marriage proposal on her ward's behalf, just as she had done Chow's. The scorned supplicant openly accused Yao of concocting this alleged conspiracy. In response, the indignant girl denied that there was anything between her and Ma Kei, and told Chow that if he did not believe her, he ought to bring Ma to the brothel, so that she could disprove the allegation to his face. According to Ah Sam, who claimed to have witnessed the events of that night, Chow Ah Young returned to the house at around 9 o'clock, accompanied by Ma Kei and another man named Si To Fat. An argument ensued, in which Yao Kum, standing at her customary spot by the 1st floor window, exchanged heated words with the three men. Finally, with a warning that he would cut her head off if she persisted with her insolence, Chow stalked off into the darkness, bringing his companions with him. Later that night, Ah Sam heard a knock at the door and asked Yao Kam to open the window to see who it was. The girl did as requested and was seized by the hair by Ma Kay, who pulled her partway through the wicket. Ah Sam then caught a glimpse of Chow Ah Young brandishing a long, curved fish-cutting knife, which he had doubtless retrieved from his home next door. Chow delivered 3 savage chops to the side of the young girl's neck, nearly beheading her and killing her instantly. The deed done, the 2 murderers vanished into the night, leaving a distraught Ah Sam to draw the dead girl back inside the house. Early the following morning, a warrant was issued for the arrest of Chow Ah Young, who did not appear for his shift at the American Hotel and had apparently not slept in his bed. 2 days after the murder, at about 5:30 in the evening, William Burns, son of Chow's employer Thomas Burns, spotted the suspect descending the stairs to the cellar of another of his father's establishments, Burns House, a luxury inn situated immediately behind the American Hotel. Upon further investigation, William found Chow Ah Young quivering in a coal bin, his sleeves and stockings spattered with dried blood. Tasking his brother, Thomas Jr., with guarding the fugitive, William alerted the authorities, and Chow was arrested. In his ensuing trial, Chow Ah Young readily confessed to committing the murder, but contradicted Ah Sam's testimony by stating that he killed Yao Kam alone, without any accomplices. With the aid of an interpreter, he told the jury that he didn't care whether they hanged him. According to author John David Adams in his 2002 book, Ghosts and Legends of Bastion Square, Chow Ah Young, called Ah Chung in this piece, was sentenced to death, but hanged himself in his jail cell before he could be executed. Legend has it that ever since, Chow's ghost has haunted the site of his old workplace, once the American Hotel near the corner of Victoria's Yates Street and Commercial Alley, and now the Edwardian-style Pither and Leaser building, built in 1900. The historic Burns House which backed the American Hotel still stands today, and some say that the lingering spirit of the Chinese murderer clings to the ruddy bricks of that Victorian building as well. According to author Shannon Sin, in his 2017 book, The Haunting of Vancouver Island, Chow's spirit is also said to manifest itself in Fan Tan Alley, a narrow corridor through Victoria's historic Chinatown, by which the murderer may have fled on the night of May 12, 1889. Local stories abound, Sin wrote, citing Season 3, Episode 3 of the Canadian TV series Creepy Canada, which first aired in the summer of 2006. People hear footsteps behind them when no one is there, he wrote. At other times, an invisible force shoves them. Tour guides and writers have said that other people have also claimed to see a young Asian man covered in blood. There was a long knife in his hand. His face is twisted in agony. For a moment he is there. Then he flees, fading as quickly as he appeared.